This morning's speaker is going to be Thomas Keenan, who's a Director of Marketing within Huawei. But before we get started, let's have a couple of housekeeping items. First of all, there's a Q&A panel in your GoToWebinar screen. Please keep questions coming throughout the webinar. We'll take most of those at the end. May take a few along the way if they're pertinent and timely, but for sure we'll take them at the end and we'll try to answer them in real time as well. So definitely keep your questions coming. Also, we're going to have a few polling questions throughout the webinar. So when we do that, please feel free to respond to those questions and we'll get some input and then we'll display the results to you so you can see the results of the polls, and that'll give you some information about what your peers are thinking about various subjects. So that's kind of an overview. Also, this webinar is being recorded and will be made available to all of you via the Huawei partner website. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Thomas Keenan, who is a director within Huawei. Go ahead, Thomas, take it away.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it. And good morning or good afternoon or evening, depending upon where you are. As I said, my name is Thomas Keenan. I'm a Director of Marketing for Huawei Enterprise USA. And kind of about half an hour to 45 minutes of material for you today. The topic is from IP to ICT. Very quickly showing a four-part agenda this morning. Number one, introducing Huawei. Hopefully a lot of you are familiar with us, but in case you're not, always glad to make new acquaintances. Talking secondly about the ICT opportunity in front of us. Fundamentally, we are at an inflection point in the industry and would love for you as a partner, as a VAR, to be able to take advantage of that. I'd like to explain what I'm talking about when I talk about ICT. And then fundamentally, if you do believe that inflection point is going on, how do you position yourself to win in the new brave world of ICT? And then finally, my last section of the seminar this morning is why exactly partner with Huawei and what can Huawei bring to the table for you? So without further ado, let me move on very quickly to my background on Huawei as a company. Number one, we're a leading global ICT solutions provider. We had very large revenue of over $35 billion in 2012, and we do serve 45 of the world's top 50 telecom operators. As I was mentioning, over 150,000 global employees, about 70,000 dedicated to R&D, and like I said, over 2 billion end users. Our presence specifically in the USA started in 2001 in Plano, Texas, outside of Dallas, and our Santa Clara, California R&D facility opened in 2011. We have established key regional sales offices throughout the United States. Boston, New York, Plano, and Los Angeles come to mind. And we have extremely tight relationships with our OEMs in the U.S. As a matter of fact, we awarded over $6 billion to U.S.-based technology companies in 2012 and formally launched U.S. Enterprise in October 2011 at Interop, New York. We also provide a full portfolio of professional, technical, and learning services. So as I mentioned, we are a very large ICT player. It's important to know that there's a major convergence going on in our industry that combines communication technologies, such as, again, analog, digital, mobile narrowband, and mobile broadband, and with IT technologies, such as I am showing at the top left part of the slide, whether that be the mainframe computer, client server, or client processing terminals and data terminals. And really the convergence of all these technologies is being driven by three major trends. The consumerization of IT, i.e. our consumers taking on and using typically IT technologies. The proliferation of cloud and services moving to the cloud that has all sorts of implications for the enterprise, obviously. And then finally, mobility. The fact that, like it or not, our mobile workforce is growing day by day. And as a CIO, as an IT department, we really do need to adjust to that growing trend. Okay, so everyone's probably wondering why I have a picture of a gorilla on this particular slide. And quite frankly, the thought is here that if you are entering this space and you believe fundamentally in the last slide that I just showed you, you do want to be playing with a gorilla, a very large player in that space. And so I'm happy to report, whether that be in mobile client, whether that be in enterprise, the cloud provider area, or carrier, we do have large market share leadership positions, whether that be for telecom infrastructure, video conferencing, carrier switching and routing, and smartphones. So across both consumer, service provider, and enterprise technologies, we have extremely high market share for a variety of those technologies again. Without further ado, I believe, Nick, it is time for polling question number one.
We're going to go ahead and issue the first polling question, which should make things interactive and fun. And this first question really we're trying to get a feel for how familiar you are with Huawei as a company. So the question is, how familiar are you with Huawei? Please select one of the following. You're very familiar and you're a current VAR. You are familiar with the company, but you're not yet a VAR. Or you're somewhat familiar, or you're not familiar at all, and this is your first exposure. So go ahead and place your vote, and then I will close the poll and show everybody the results here momentarily. Okay, just give you another minute or two to get your votes in. And I'm going to go ahead and close out the poll and show you the results. So interestingly, you can see that the vast majority of you actually are current VARs, which is fantastic, and the rest of you are at least very or somewhat familiar with the company, and nobody here, it's their first exposure. So I think that'll help Thomas continue on in the presentation and really understand kind of what level of depth to go into. So that's fantastic. Thank you for that, and we'll go ahead and continue on with the presentation.
Thank you, Nick.
That was an interesting poll. So now that we understand a little bit about the background on Huawei, let's look at the ICT opportunity, starting with the specific market drivers and what's going on there. So item number one that's really driving a lot of what's going on in the ICT space is just a tsunami, let's call it, of mobile client proliferation. Worldwide device shipments by segments is what I'm showing on this slide. And there's a couple interesting points here. Number one, the key trend for PCs is that in essence they have reached pretty much the peak of their shipments, and the personal computer is coming in essence to the sunset of its growth. And that is being replaced very quickly by both the mobile phone and the tablet. Also, with that, obviously, that drives the whole BYOD and the mobility dynamic. As a matter of fact, 1.2 billion workers is the number I expect outside of the office in the next couple of years, and 35% of those total workers will be on the move, and so in essence, the mobile workforce will be 35% of the entire global workforce. Clearly for IT, that presents several challenges. Number one, in a recent poll we had, where we got the answer that 71% of the interviewees that Huawei asked think that mobile devices contribute to, or at least make you think about more and more security incidents that can occur because of people bringing their own devices to work. So clearly a security strategy is necessary. Number two, companies, while they allow those employees to bring those devices to work, they do expect them to for not just a cost saving, since they don't have to buy the device anymore, but they expect additional efficiency from that worker and their worker for the network. And then finally, the employees expect a better experience, both in business and private life, a consistent experience, and really the ability to mix work and non-work anytime, any place. Because that's my first series of dynamics. The other things I'll talk about are three major trends going on in what I call enterprise market tectonics. Number one, enterprise data centers are breaking up, and that's causing certain things to occur. Number two, carriers want to be cloud computing providers. And then finally, what I call hyperscale or Web 2.0 companies want to be carriers. The first trend clearly is that the clients in the form of desktop and laptop PCs controlled by IT have broken away with the advent of the phone and the tablet device, as I just mentioned. The old typical client gorillas, let's talk about HP or Dell, are being replaced by new client gorillas. Apple, Samsung, and yes, indeed, Huawei. As I mentioned, we are a very large device provider, device and tablet provider. Carriers, number two, want to be cloud computing providers. Telecom carriers like AT&T and Verizon see cloud computing as a natural extension of their telecom carrier model. Both companies have cloud computing offerings, are expected to invest heavily in the future to grow these businesses. And M&A or mergers and acquisitions between leading cloud service providers and telecoms seems very likely sometime in the future. And then finally, number three, the last trend I mentioned, hyperscale or Web 2.0 companies want also to be carriers. With millions of servers already deployed in mega data centers around the world, companies like Google see enterprise cloud computing and internet-based telecom as a natural extension of their existing cloud offerings. Google is already providing optical networks in various cities in the U.S. to pilot their carrier business. And mergers and acquisitions between cash-rich hyperscale providers like an Apple, like a Google, and telecoms do seem very likely at some time in the future. Okay, so those are the trends going on in the industry. The conversation you need to start having as a partner to those companies you're serving is that CIO, that IT department needs to start becoming much more agile in servicing that brave new world. In essence, by plugging into the new cloud model, you're moving that IT department from being a traditional cost containment center that supports and reports with CFO to actually one that walks out of that shadow and provides its own value. It needs to show the IT department, the CIO, need to show how they're moving the company forward with those brave new services, and you, the partner, need to be able to explain the changing role to the CIO and position them for success in the future. What I'm talking about is, yes, a new class of enterprise infrastructure is necessary to support that new story that I just talked about. We're walking away from the traditional closed-wall enterprise IT model that we've seen with the vendors I'm showing on the left, and we recognize that there are many clients who are a little hesitant, a little fearful of totally having an open environment and how that will leave them exposed. What we're suggesting is a best of both worlds private cloud ICT infrastructure that is enterprise-ready, cost-competitive, and forward-looking. So in essence, taking the best of the old world, combining it with the promise of open source, and creating that new net world for the customer. And at the end of the day, yes, we are the first to recognize. We get your pain. We understand. We know that you as a partner, as a VAR, are looking for new alternatives. You've lived in that old world, and you understand that that old world has characteristics such as a very high service percent of product cost, very high cost of certifications. There's, quite frankly, too many partners chasing scarce dollars, and, quite frankly, very thin margins and low profitability. So at the end of the day, you do feel like Sisyphus to some degree, where every day he rolls that boulder up the hill, and at sunset, sometimes it feels like it rolls all the way back down. And so you're trying to break out of that model and find a new place and a new landscape to play in. And so that's what we're doing at Wallet. We're suggesting to you that the inflection point is arrived where you can do exactly that. We fundamentally believe that the crossroads is here, where trends such as globalization, big data, and cloud are driving the move to ICT. And if you catch that trend at this point, your business, we believe, can go on to very big new heights. And Nick, with that, I believe we're going to go to polling question number 2.
Fantastic. All right, let's go ahead and find out the second polling question. Now, many of you mentioned that you are already existing Huawei VARs, which is great, because this question is really asking you about our VAR program. And I know this whole webinar isn't really focused around the VAR program, but we would like to capture some information from you about what is most important to you from a partner program perspective. Is it the price and the discounting available to you? Is it training? Is it the marketing funds to help you generate demand? Is it deal registration to help you protect those opportunities that you're bringing to us, or is it something different? So I know all these things are probably important at some level, but we're trying to figure out what is most important. So go ahead and give a vote here, and we'll give it another 10, 20 seconds and then show you guys what the results are. All right. Anybody else want to vote? Go ahead and do that, and then we'll share the results with you. Okay, we're going to go ahead and share it, and as you can see, it's a fairly good spread between price discount being number 1, and then being able to get marketing funds to drive demand, being able to register deals and protect those opportunities coming in tied for second, with training showing up. So excellent feedback, and all those things are very important to our program, so we appreciate your knowledge of that. Let's go ahead and turn it back over to Thomas.
Thank you, Nick. Great results.
Thank you, Nick. Great results of the poll there. And so moving ahead to the next piece of my presentation here, the positioning to win section. This is when it starts to get interesting of how having understood the ICT space a little bit more, and the fact that the ICT is here, it is coming, whether we feel it is or not, it's absolutely occurring. How do I position myself to win in the brave new world? And quite frankly, the good news is that enterprises are starting to embrace the technologies that correspond to enterprise ICT, whether I've got looking in the IT side, service and storage, networks, operating platforms, and enterprise apps, or over in the communications world with Wi-Fi, cell phones, tablets, video surveillance, video conferencing, or voice over IP. These are technologies that are very much starting to come together in the enterprise space. And here's how I start telling you how Huawei specifically can start to support you. And quite frankly, we've got a very pointed focus in the U.S. to start with on 3 key technology areas where we have an extreme depth of product that we can help you in. That's enterprise network and enterprise wireless offerings, data center infrastructure, both from a storage, a server, a VDI perspective, and unified collaboration and communication solutions, whether that be telepresence, video conferencing, or unified collaboration and communication. Those strongly help support such emerging trends as BYOD, software-defined networking, and cloud data center. And we know to start with focus, when you start in the market, focus is extremely important. And so the top verticals that we're going to be going after, at least to start with in the U.S., are retail, higher education, manufacturing, K through 12, and media, as well as the general large enterprise customers. And I think if any of those appeal to you, and we certainly think they should, this is a journey I think you want to be along as well. To me, when you're talking about a new vendor or someone I might be a little less familiar with, I'm also always very interested in how they're selling to current customers and where they had successes. And so let me run at this point through 2 or 3 examples across a variety of verticals where Huawei has had some very good success in the U.S. The first one is, I guess I'll call it kind of the nail-biting area of being on the interop net. So for those who are familiar with it, organized by UBM TechWeb, interop is a premier networking venue that provides comprehensive and unbiased understanding of business technology. A major cornerstone of that event, Interop Net, is built in collaboration with a bunch of hand-picked innovative vendors who work together to create a cutting-edge interoperable network on the trade show floor. So this actually provides all communications capabilities for all the needs of those 13,000 interop goers for the duration of the show. And so at the end of the day, if you know these folks, you know they just want the network to work. They want it to be available. They don't want to have any security issues associated with either their or someone else's device. And in essence, to them, it's very much table stakes. The interop net had just better work. And so we're happy to report that Glenn Evans, who's the lead architect at Interop Net, has a very good quote that basically says we were up and operating with 0 downtime during the event. There were no major service affecting outages that users are subject to. And from a performance perspective, with 13,000 users, you better have performance. We're looking at 120 gig to the core, and all their upstream connections were rock solid. And so Huawei, again, provided all the switching infrastructure, whether that be core, aggregation, or access, to support this, and proved to be interoperable with 15 other vendors during the length of the show. So again, it showcased not only interop, but also the interop NOC, and in essence, the core theme of interoperability. We built a reliable and secure network that had no downtime or service interruptions during the event, and the interop engineers told us it was a very smooth install and had very few issues compared to past events. The second major win that I'm going to talk to you about is a major U.S. retail company with many, many hundreds of locations throughout the U.S. If you know anything about what's going on in retail these days, there are 4 or 5 major trends that we all need to understand. Number one, the rise of the empowered user. They're shopping in stores, they're shopping online, they're bringing the devices to stores and checking out prices and value from other companies. So you very much need to be on your toes as a retailer in order to compete these days. It's called the rise of the multi-channel and informed customer. They have an employee base that is very dispersed and needs to be agile to answer to that very demanding customer base. And really the management of the major retailer now is looking to the CIO to help them compete in both the store and the online world. And so for this major retailer, we went ahead and installed our S5700 core gig aggregation switch, the 5700 that's shown on this area, as an access switch to connect various types of endpoints, whether that be IP phones, PCs, WLAN access points, video cameras, and pricing scanners. And so this really forms a core of the connectivity throughout each one of their stores. We do support the 802.38t standard, which provides up to 30 watts of power through Cat5 to remote endpoints, which obviates the need for a local electrical outlet. And also 10 gigabit bandwidth from access server through aggregation supports large data bandwidth requirements. We are also compatible via the S5700 with older fiber types, including an installed OM1 base that this retailer had, so there was no need to pull out the old infrastructure. My next case comes from the world of academia. The MIT Media Lab, which was founded in 1985, is a leading communications research consortium that encourages the unconventional mixing and matching of seemingly disparate research areas of media arts and sciences. It has a very large operating budget of over $35 million, and it supports 25 research groups working on more than 350 projects that scan the range from digital approaches for treating neurological disorders, electrical car manufacturing for sustainable cities, and advanced imaging technologies that can, quote-unquote, see around a corner. And so you can imagine we've got some very bright PhDs working at dispersed locations, and so the need for collaboration and conferencing is paramount. And that's exactly what Huawei went ahead and installed. And so this is a case where we enabled parties to communicate and participate via either a PC, a Mac, an iPad, or actually in the office on telepresence calls to mix and match those ideas and drive research projects forward. My last example is an independent school district in Texas. And this independent school district is extremely large. It expands 27 campuses, has over 15,000 students, and 1,500 employees. And so the challenge to these folks in such a dynamic environment is to grow and with growing network traffic loads, is to be able to support the growth of the network as well as a highly mobile transient population of administrators, students, faculty, and research. And obviously, as we all know with education these days, their need for extreme network flexibility and extremely low total cost of ownership is very important. These folks have fewer and fewer administrators to do their networking needs, and so they need to have a network that in essence squeezes the best value out of a dime each and every single day. As with any enterprise, network communications are critical for day-to-day operations at the school district. Network-based communications between administrators, faculty, staff, and students supports research, assignment completion, as well as continued fluid operation of the school day. So this independent school district turned to our fast WLAN connections for their school system. We supported multiple types of terminals, we were compatible with several different types of terminals that were already installed, and we now provide fast and reliable access throughout the ISD WLAN network. The advanced wireless structure allows us to have a distributed access point with centralized management, reducing the OpEx of the school's IT system. We can actually support up to 512 access points per access controller, providing a very expandable WLAN network for ISD schools. Okay, and with that, having concluded my customer examples, we'll move right on to polling question number 3, Nick.
Thanks, Thomas. Outstanding. Those are very, very good examples of Huawei's ability to go into different verticals. So I think that's fantastic. All right, so our final polling question of the day is really about where you see ICT opportunity in your customer base and the prospects that you are working on. Unlike the others, you can check multiple answers here. And so what we really want to know is, as you go out and approach your customer base, what do you think the happy hunting ground is? Is it selling BYOD solutions? Is it private cloud? Is it SDN? Or is it wireless LAN? So go ahead and make your vote there, and we'll go ahead and share those results with you shortly. I really appreciate all the interaction with all the polling questions. We're getting lots of good responses. And I do want to reiterate to type in your questions in the Q&A panel. We'll be picking those up at the end. We do have a few questions already, but please feel free to keep those flowing, and we'll be able to get all your questions answered towards the end of the webinar. So I'm going to go ahead and share the results with you here. I'm going to go ahead and close it out. And as you can see, BYOD is a fairly large opportunity, as is private cloud. About 2/3 of you believe that's a great place to go sell some solutions, and then SDN and WLAN also are significant players. So all of those 4 areas are areas that Thomas touched on to some extent through the examples that he gave, and these are all areas that Huawei has very strong solutions. So it looks like a good synergy between this audience and the Huawei product line. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Thomas to take us home.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate the audience's participation. And let me then move into my final section of my webinar this morning. Why exactly partner with Huawei? What can it bring for me? How can we work together with Huawei to go out and have some great wins in the industry? 6 classic reasons I think that you ought to be taking a look at Huawei. Number one, hopefully by this time, given the experiences of the audience and the information I've been able to share here today, we do have an unsurpassed product offering. I'll show that on the next slide that is extremely competitive with any other vendor you might be working with currently or plan to in the future. We do have guaranteed margin for partner. Everyone gets 35% off of standard MSRP, and then there are additions of up to 30% more off depending upon the level of partner you are, whether that be our standard partner, our silver, or our gold level. And all the details of our partner program, I will have a slide at the end that actually shows contact information to get yourself all those details. We do have easy and, in our case, free fast training certification. That's an advantage over a lot of our competition that has a significant fee, if you would, for that training cert. Targeted demand gen that helps support bring you leads. Very flexible and compelling service offerings. That's obviously one of the first questions that you'll get. Is, how do I service this new product on my network? And we have an extremely good answer to all of that. And extensive sales resources to help you out in closing those deals. I talked about having a second and none product portfolio, and I'm showing really here the major areas against top 4 competitors that we have: HP, IBM, Dell, and Cisco. And you'll notice that at the end of the day, no one has one of these major vendors as broad a product portfolio, including Cisco, that obviously has a very broad one, but does not compete in the areas of smartphones and tablets. So really, from an end-to-end ICT perspective, Huawei really is a vendor you do want to be looking at very closely. Very important highlight that I'd like to bring out. I talked about TCO and the fact that we are very cost competitive. I really want to stress this because it's a great selling point for Huawei. We have been recognized throughout the industry and across the world for our innovation. And these are, these 6 I'm showing are just some of the awards that we've won over time, whether that being The Economist, giving us kudos late last year for corporate use of innovation. The Informa magazine for Best Long-Term Evolution Commercial Performance Award and Best Contribution to LTE R&D. IEEE for excellence in standards developments across many technologies, and Fast Company, a magazine that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, giving us an award of being one of the most top 5 innovative companies in the world. And it speaks very much to the fact that we have those 65 to 70,000 engineers, huge percentage of our company working on R&D and innovation every single day of the week. And so kudos to them, and that brings a lot of value to you to stand out with your customer. So at the end of the day, my last 2 slides hopefully summarize what I've been talking to you about. If we look back over the last decades, I see very much a parallel with what's going on with ICT now and what went on in several industries over time. So in the 70s, it was all about discovering the freedom to drive, if you would. And so major companies like Toyota in the U.S. made huge inroads when they showed themselves to really provide new and different value in that space. In the late 80s and early 90s, Southwest Airlines turned the paradigm of that industry really on its ear and made it much more of a value play, and it served the customer and really differentiated themselves in that space, and the rest is history. They're a major carrier today. In the era of moving from talking to communications, such standouts as Samsung and Apple obviously changed that industry forever. And that, I think, is a very close parallel which going on now with IT and communications technologies, that we are in the forefront of what we will look back on in 10 years and note that this was, in essence, this was the watershed. This was a change in the industry. This was the time to get on board with a vendor like Huawei and partner with them. So my last and my summary slide, at the end of the day, ICT, I think, is here. It's creating a unique market opportunity right now. You've got to be paying attention. We're a world leader in every other market where we play. We believe we will be in the U.S. as well. The Huawei channel model is calibrated to assure your success from a deal registration, training and certification, discounting, and market investment perspective. And also, to quote The Innovator's Dilemma, which is a paper I hope several of you have read, opportunity exists when you disrupt the status quo, and you ought to be riding that wave right now. I want to thank you for your time, and I'll turn it back over to Nick.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Thomas. That was a great, concise overview of the opportunity in ICT. Thank you guys for your questions. We do have some great questions that have come in. Thomas, this first one I think is for you. Because you were talking about Huawei's product portfolio and some of the performance metrics. And one of the questions is, has Huawei run any performance verification for its LAN and data center switching portfolios?
Yeah, great question, Nick. And as a matter of fact, we have absolutely run independent testing across a variety of performance standards for both our LAN switching and data center switching, the latter being the Cloud Engine series. And those can all be found on the Meyercom website at www.meyer.com, and just go ahead and search for Huawei test results, and those all ought to pop up.
Excellent. There's another question just generally about who should the VARs be contacting with regards to information. So I think if you advance one slide, we'll have contact information. The guy that really is our channel marketing leader is a gentleman by the name of Stuart Shervin. Please contact Stuart either via phone or via the email address provided there, and he'll be able to give you details about the partner program. Another question that came up had to do with training. So I'll go ahead and provide some information about that. It basically says, how long does it take for me to get trained and certified to sell your products? There's actually two answers to that. One set of training is more around sales and sales engineers, so it's pre-sales type of training. That training is actually available today online. Some of you on this webinar may have even attended our recent ICT summit that we had a few weeks ago in Cupertino, and we actually did a live version of this training, but that training is also now available online, and you can take one of two tracks there. You can either become a Huawei certified sales professional, or if you're more of a technical guy, you can become a Huawei certified sales engineer. Both of those involve certification testing, which is a fairly easy test that you can pass if you pay attention to the courses. It's all open book, and our goal is to help you get certified so you can go out there and identify Huawei opportunities and be able to sell them successfully into your customer base. So that training is available, it is free, and it can be done online. The second certification we have is a bit more advanced, and I'd like you to contact Stuart if you're interested in that. These are 3- and 5-day courses that will allow you to become proficient at actually deploying Huawei solutions. So when you sell a Huawei solution, this second training I'm talking about will allow you to go out and deploy it and implement it in your customer environment. These are the professional services kinds of training that will allow you to make money installing and maintaining Huawei products. So if you're interested in that training, those courses are held regularly, and Stuart will be able to vector you into the right individuals. There's a gentleman by the name of Jim Schott, who some of you might have met at the ICT event in Cupertino, and Stuart will be able to connect you with Jim and allow you to be able to get into those courses if desired. Another question that's come up that I think is probably best answered by Thomas is, how does Huawei support BYOD? And if you could just give a little overview on that, that would be great.
Yes, that's a real, obviously, in-depth topic, but let me just try to cover it in a few points, and then definitely there's much more information on our website. The good news is that Huawei is in a great position, unlike a lot of other vendors, to support all the key components of bring your own device technologies. Number one, we obviously support an end-to-end secure network. That's the bread and butter of what we do, whether that be VPN at the edge, whether that be access or the ingress to the data center. We have firewall solutions, we have VPN solutions, we have SSL solutions, and so we can provide that first very important component that's an end-to-end secure network. At the end of the day, no end-to-end secure network, no BYOD solution. It's real simple. Number two, we do provide mobile device management capability to onboard, track, update, and then sunset personal devices as they come on and then leave the corporate network, and to provide security that must go along with that in order to mix personal devices with enterprise data. And then finally, a lot of you are probably thinking, how about that secure desktop? And absolutely, we provide the secure desktop or the secure sandbox inside that desktop where the user can securely run corporate applications on a personal device, and once that the corporate application is no longer necessary, to go ahead and then delete the enterprise data off the personal device. So for full detail, that's a very short answer to a reasonably in-depth question, but given the webinar limits, hopefully that is enough of an answer. For follow-up on the BYOD solution, please look at our main website, and there's a variety of information on BYOD from Huawei. Thanks.
Excellent. Great answer, Thomas. I think that provides a good introductory overview to the BYOD area. Another question that came up has to do with marketing funds, and it says, what is Huawei doing to generate leads for resellers? And that's a multifaceted answer in itself. First of all, Huawei is very committed to an aggressive marketing program in the U.S. We attend major trade shows like Interop. We do a wide variety of webinars and other demand generation activities, and we are funneling those leads to our authorized partners. So if you're not already a partner, there's certainly a great incentive to become one. I think Huawei is really aggressively trying to establish a foothold in the U.S. market and is generating a lot of leads and activity that needs to be fulfilled through its partners. So it's a great time to be a Huawei partner, and that's kind of a general answer to that. Now, another question that came up that's kind of tied into it has to do with actual marketing funds for the resellers. So if you look at our reseller program, you'll notice that, as Thomas mentioned, we have 35 points off just right off the top, and then depending on whether you're authorized silver or gold, you can attain another 10, 20, or 30% discount off of that. So the gold partners can attain up to a 65% discount off of list. But another thing that the various levels of partner give you within the Huawei Partner Program is access to co-op. So if you're a silver or a gold partner, we actually will funnel co-op marketing funds back to your organization, and that can be used directly for generating demand and those kinds of activities. And we will partner with you and provide support for you in those efforts. So that's another reason to become a partner and another way the partner program helps you. And the final question that we have that's also related to the partner program is asking about demo equipment and whether or not demo equipment is available to resellers. And it is, and it's available again to the higher levels of partner within the Huawei Partner Program, the silver and gold levels, where you not only have access to demo equipment, but you can actually buy that demo equipment at a highly discounted rate. So for more information about the Huawei Partner Program, the various levels, what it takes to become a partner, again, contact Stuart Shervin and he'll be able to help you. But clearly there's tremendous value to the program and a lot of investment being made by Huawei. At this point, Thomas, do you have any other questions that you can see? No? All right, at this point I think we are all out of questions, so I want to thank everyone for spending the time. Again, this session has been recorded, so it will be made available on the Huawei website, so you can pass that on to your friends or colleagues or review back for any of the slides or information that you wanted. So I'd like to thank everyone for their time, and we will see you again soon on another Huawei webinar. Thank you.